First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Actually, when the one tractor came across, the tractor trailer came across, another tractor trailer hit it, and just basically caused a chain reaction crash from that point.
A fatal crash shut down all lanes north and southbound on I-75 in Gainesville yesterday. The accident killed one person and left 4 others injured, and some lanes were still closed until this morning. That's our top story this Thursday, November 19th. I'm James Torres.
And I'm Connor Ingalls, filling in for Jenna Sands. Thanks for joining us. The injured were taken to UF Health Shands and North Florida Regional Medical Center. WUFT's Darling Hill reports.
At about 5:30 p.m. yesterday, the major crash caused all lanes on I-75 near Archer Road to be blocked and caused drivers to be held up in traffic for hours. Traffic had to be diverted at the Newberry-Wilson Road exits, and drivers trying to get onto I-75 were forced to turn around and use other roads, such as US 441.
Northbound tractor trailer came out of the northbound lane and crossed over into the median, going through the guardrail into the southbound lane, and caused a chain reaction collision.
The crash also caused a diesel fuel leak. Some witnesses reported hearing what they thought was an explosion.
There was not an explosion, but there was a fire related to the accident, which was extinguished by the fire department.
3 semi-trucks and 6 vehicles were involved in a crash on the I-75 Archer Road overpass. Tonight, 1 person is left dead and 4 others are injured. The fatality was confirmed to be a semi-truck driver. The only eyewitness at the scene was the semi-truck driver himself. Robert Stone, a driver for D. Mosley Trucking, says when he came across the crash, he immediately slowed down and pulled over to help. Stone declined to go on camera, saying what he saw happen is his greatest fear, but he acted because he says he couldn't sit around and let anyone die. Darling Hill, WUFT News.
All lanes of the interstate were back open early this morning. A University of Florida student died during an ROTC training exercise today. The student was Landon Rogers, a freshman exploratory major and recent graduate from Eastside High School. Rogers died at Percy Beard Track while working out with ROTC. University of Florida police officials say Rogers collapsed while running. Rogers' friends and classmates say they're shocked and saddened that this happened to such a wonderful person.
He always had a positive attitude, and he always had like this positive aura radiating off of him. So I don't think anybody I know or anybody that knows him could have ever felt anything negative towards him.
University of Florida police officers say the cause of his death is still unknown.
A man suspected of committing an armed robbery in Gainesville is behind bars. Police officers say Anthony Smalls was one of the 2 men in Tuesday night's robbery near the UF campus. Officers say they tracked down Smalls through the victim's stolen cell phone. The second suspect and the gun used in the robbery have still not been located. Officers encourage residents to walk in well-lit areas as well as with other people.
The Florida rain started up last night, and we haven't had much of a break today.
Yeah, not much at all. And UF forecaster Rebecca Kopelman joins us in the Weather Center to let us know when we can expect the rain to end. Rebecca.
Unfortunately, rain could continue, there for a couple more hours, possibly up until about 7 or 8 o'clock tonight. Some light rain occurring over Alachua County, much of the interior parts of North Florida, and some heavier rainfall in portions of Dixie and Levy County. This is all moving in off of the Gulf and associated with a cold front that's moving through. So we could still have some more rainfall for tonight, but we'll have some gradual clearing throughout the evening. A few showers near I-75 up until about 7 or 8. Then we start to clear out. The winds start to turn out of the north. That's marking the front's arrival. So you'll notice a little bit of a change by the morning. We'll have some gradual clearing. Temperatures about 10 degrees cooler in the low 60s. Back to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. French authorities confirmed today that the mastermind of the Paris attacks is dead.
The female suicide bomber was also identified. A recording emerged seconds before she detonated her suicide belt. Video from DailyMail.com shows the actual attack. Bill Neely has this report.
It's been confirmed here that one of France's most wanted terrorists, Abdelhamid Abaoud, is dead, killed in that Saint-Denis apartment, riddled with bullets, according to the Paris prosecutor, and identified only by fingerprints and DNA. No question, this is a police success. Lots of questions, though, about the intelligence services and a clear signal that this was an intelligence failure. That's what France's Interior Minister hinted at today when he said no European state basically told us he was here. It was a non-EU state that informed France only on Monday that Abaoud had actually passed through Greece and had arrived in mainland Europe. Bernard Cazeneuve, the Interior Minister, used that to say Europe needs to waken up. It needs to take its intelligence and its defense more seriously.
In Washington, the fight over how to prevent an ISIS attack in the U.S. got more divisive today. The House passed a bill to pause President Obama's plan to bring 10,000 Syrian refugees to the U.S. They voted to delay implementation of President Obama's plan and subject the refugees to intensive screening. Threatening a veto, President Obama said refugees are not a danger, but Republicans insist this is a necessary precaution.
We know that there are gaps in this program, and we have to keep the country safe. And that is why this pause is necessary.
Senate Democrats focused on the millions of visitors to the U.S., proposing a full investigation of anyone who's been to Syria before they come to the U.S., and House Republicans say they might go along with that.
New tonight, former Subway spokesman Jared Fogle has been sentenced to more than 15 years in prison. This comes after Fogle pled guilty to 1 count each of traveling to engage in illicit sexual conduct with a minor and distribution and receipt of child pornography. A judge sentenced Fogle to 15 years and 8 months in prison. His attorneys were requesting a 5-year sentence. A psychologist testified that Fogle suffers from mild pedophilia and that he traded his food addiction for a sex addiction. He also agreed to pay 14 of his victims $100,000 each. And presidential hopeful Mike Huckabee is being sued for a familiar 80s song played at a rally. You can probably name it in just a few beats. It's the Eye of the Tiger, and now Rude Music, owned by Frankie Sullivan, has filed a federal suit against Huckabee's campaign for copyright infringement. The suit says the Grammy-winning song was used without permission during his rally for Kim Davis. She's the county clerk who was jailed for refusing to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples.
As Thanksgiving nears, there are widespread efforts to help the hungry find a little more comfort through the holidays.
That's right. This time of year, WUFT News often covers special holiday drives local to Gainesville. And tonight we look at a local event with an international reach. Now, WUFT's Tanya Borsellino visited a UF operation which was hard at work on a big contribution for Stop Hunger Now. Tanya.
For the 3rd year in a row, UF is contributing to Stop Hunger Now. One of the charity's signature programs is packaging food products into little kits that are shipped overseas by the millions. To manage that, volunteer groups across the country get organized to crank out at least 10,000 units. The sound of the gong marks another goal met for the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences in today's food packaging event.
What we're doing here today is packaging meals to support Stop Hunger Now, which is a global food relief organization.
The college is teaming up with the Collegiate Farm Bureau and Gator Wesley to package more than 15,000 meals for families in need.
It's important because there still is a lot of hunger in the world, not only here at home, but also around the world.
The meal prep starts here. Students put on their hairnets and pack rice, vegetables, proteins, and vitamins into these bags, which hold at least 6 servings. Each bag is then handed over to a weighing station, sealed and packaged to be delivered. The ingredients cost only 29 cents per bag.
A lot of times that one bag is an entire family's meal for the entire day. So we try to pack as many good nutrients and ingredients as we can in that one bag because it's got to be spread very thin sometimes.
The volunteers also brought non-perishable food items to give to the Field and Fork Pantry on the UF campus.
Food is so readily available for us here, and in other places in the world, like people are starving. This is a great reminder, and I'm fortunate enough to give a few hours of my time to help them out.
Divided into 2 shifts, more than 100 students chipped in.
Really it's about giving back and giving our students an opportunity, especially during this time when Thanksgiving is around, and making them more aware that there is a need.
The UF goal was more than 15,000 meals. In 4 weeks, the college will be notified where the meals were delivered. Tanya Borsellino, WUFT News.
All right, Tanya, thank you. Well, WUFT News First at 5 is just getting started. Coming up, coffee drinkers rejoice. A cup a day really might keep the doctor away. Find out how consistently drinking coffee may benefit your health.
Plus, new information released this week about antibiotics may surprise you. I'll have that story coming up after the break.
And we have one front on the way to North Florida now, but there's already another one that I'm keeping my eye on, and it's going to bring temperatures that we haven't seen yet this season. I'm going to break it all down for you coming up after the break. Stay with us.
watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome back. It's World Antibiotics Awareness Week, a week-long public health campaign that was declared by the World Health Organization.
And because of this, several new studies have been released that may surprise you. Laura Barrero joins us in the newsroom.
If there's one theme among all research just released, it's that people don't get it. There's a lot of misunderstanding about best practices for antibiotics and what antibiotic resistance is. But some journalists are trying to translate what the experts know, down to a level where people understand enough to make smarter choices. A new study shows people think the more you use antibiotics, the more immune you become to the medicine. But it's not the person that becomes immune. It's the disease-causing bacteria when not fully wiped out.
So when we take an antibiotic that ought to kill them, but that they're now defended against, the bacteria around them die, but those resistant bacteria survive and expand into that living space that's now been created.
Maren McKenna has written extensively about the increasing resistance to antibiotics. She was going to speak at the University of Florida today about the increased use of antibiotics in animals, but due to new information released Monday by the WHO and the Wellcome Trust, she decided to pivot her discussion. The research shows the average person really doesn't understand antibiotic resistance.
In fact, some of the things they think about antibiotic resistance would actually make them do all the wrong things to making antibiotic resistance better.
Antibiotics are a popular method to treat infectious diseases.
They usually work. They usually do work, so yeah. And a lot of them are affordable too.
And many patients want them, even though they don't help with viral infections like cold and flu. McKenna points to research that found in 2010 about 80% of people in Florida were prescribed antibiotics. She says people should be more careful with them.
Not use antibiotics except when we need them, and we can take our antibiotics when we're given them. But we also cannot press doctors to give us antibiotics if we think we're sick.
He also warns people to avoid purchasing meat that comes from animals that are fed antibiotics. One scary finding released today came from researchers in China. There are worries a type of E. coli is becoming resistant to one class of antibiotics that still works. Researchers believe the immunity transfers with just a tiny piece of DNA called a plasmid, and the resistant bacteria may be spreading in the chicken and pork food supply. From the newsroom, Laura Barrero, WUFT News.
All right, Laura, thank you. And that's not all we have for our health and medical news.
WFT's Daniel Prinz collects items to share each Thursday and joins us now.
When you think about access to healthcare, you normally don't think about Uber, but the company is trying to bring together caregivers and their patients. Uber drivers are doing more than getting patients from point A to point B. People living in Orlando and Tampa are using Uber in new ways to help protect against the flu. Instead of just using the app to request a ride, you can request a flu shot. In select cities, you pay $10 for a nurse to travel to you and administer your vaccine dose. Passport Health is providing the registered nurses. Uber expects to deliver about 10,000 flu shots before the service ends. New government data is showing the infection rates for sexually transmitted diseases are on the rise. In 2014, there were 1.4 million reported cases of chlamydia, which is the highest yearly total for any STD ever reported by the CDC. Cases of syphilis shot up 15% from 2013 to 2014, and gonorrhea rates increased 5%. Young people between 15 and 24 years old accounted for 2/3 of reported cases of chlamydia and gonorrhea. It took a team of 150 medical professionals and 26 hours to give a man a new face. For those who would rather not see the surgery images, we note this report runs about a minute and a half. But if you watch, you'll see quite a transformation. Less than 3 months after the surgery, Patrick Hardison is out of the hospital and living on his own. Jen Maxfield reports.
You see how nice your nose is?
This is the moment Patrick Hardison first looked in the mirror and saw his new face. For the first time in 14 years, he saw a nose, 2 ears, and hair on his head.
Here you can appreciate the dramatic transformation that he underwent with one operation, despite having undergone over 70 procedures back in his hometown.
In 2001, Hardison was a volunteer firefighter in Senatobia, Mississippi, when he became trapped while trying to rescue a woman from a house fire. He was severely burned. He endured years of surgeries and constant stares from strangers. Hardison finally decided to go on the wait list for a face transplant.
I don't get up every morning, you think, it's the day of the day, you know.
In August, 26-year-old David Rodabaugh suffered a devastating bike accident. Doctors declared him brain dead. His mother immediately said yes to donating her son's face, especially when she heard it was going to a first responder.
His mother immediately said yes. There was no hesitation in her mind. You see, her son had always wanted to be a fireman.
Dr. Eduardo Rodriguez and his team of surgeons began a marathon surgery, the most complex facial transplant ever attempted. It included all the skin over the head and neck. Hardison's 5 children saw their dad with his new face for the first time in the hospital. Doctors say he has shown no signs of rejection and that his surgery has advanced medicine, proving major facial transplants are possible.
Well, some good news for coffee drinkers. Researchers at Harvard analyzed data from 3 large ongoing studies, including more than 200,000 people. People who drank moderate amounts of coffee, about 2 to 5 cups a day, were less likely to die from heart disease, neurological diseases, and type 2 diabetes. The effect held true for both caffeinated and decaf coffee. So the mechanism is unknown, but coffee lovers aren't complaining. Well, 2 to 5 cups of coffee. A lot of us in the newsroom have to be definitely reaching that threshold.
Yeah, I actually don't drink coffee. Maybe it's time to start.
Yeah, but I can get why it keeps you so alive. And after 2 or 3 cups of coffee, I'm pretty jolted myself. But Danielle, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we've had plenty of wet weather this week in north central Florida.
But Rebecca is tracking some changes to come next week. Rebecca.
There are some changes on the way next week. We still have to get through some rain first, but the reward will be worth it, especially by the time we get to Monday and Tuesday. Right now, still some showers on storm track radar. Some heavier activity is going to start to move further to the north and east, closer to Gainesville and I-75 over the next half an hour. That's moving out of Levy County just to the north of Cedar Key and is going to start to push towards Gainesville. Mainly just some light to some moderate rainfall, nothing too heavy. You want to take it slow on the roadways though. And yeah, it's been a soggy, gloomy day outside. Clouds overtook the University of Florida's campus much of the day today, kept our temperatures below the 80-degree mark. And check it out, we only moved about 5 degrees on campus today from that low to the high. So it's been a very unusual day, lots of rainfall in the area, and it could continue through this evening up until about 7 or 8 o'clock. So we just have a couple of more hours to get through. Then we'll see some clearing, and this is all associated with the cold front, and you can tell by these wind vectors shooting out of the north, marking the front's arrival, but it's not going to bring much cooler temperatures. We're going to see a little bit of a change. I'll explain in a moment. But if you want to track with us, you can get the new mobile app, Florida Storms, available on the iOS and Google Play stores, where you can get up to 72 hours of future radar and track along with us. But first of all, let's get to the 3 big things. We talked about number 1, the front moving through. We're going to start to dry out and turn slightly cooler by Friday. We have another rain event on the way, though, a weak system, but showers are still likely late on Saturday. And then a strong cold front. This is the change I was talking about. The coolest temperatures so far this fall arriving for Monday and Tuesday. So we have some changes with not just this front, but I'm already watching another front. You can see dry air already taking over the southeast. That dry air is going to move in later on tonight and tomorrow. And I'm watching this spin up here in the upper Midwest. That's already our next system developing. Could bring some snow to portions of the Great Lakes region in Iowa and Illinois over the next couple of days. Going to bring some cool temperatures to us here in North Florida. But let's start with tonight, and by the morning, going to be about 10 degrees cooler in some spots, 61 in Gainesville, 59 in Lake City. Will start to dry out, and you will feel that it's much cooler. Later on in the afternoon, 76 degrees, 77 in Lake City. And we're going to be dry for much of the day on Friday, but we're going to start to see some changes with a system developing on Saturday. So we stay dry for much of game day, and then in the evening there could be some rain moving through, but it does start to clear out late on Saturday night into Sunday. So that was point number 2. Let's get to point number 3 here. We get past the rain Saturday and Sunday, then it turns much cooler Monday morning and Tuesday, both in the low 40s and highs only in the 60s. Back to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Tonight for Thursday Night Football, the Jaguars are back in Jacksonville.
That's right, and they'll be sporting some new uniforms. WUFT sports anchor Sarah Mack joins us now.
That's right, guys. The Jaguars are definitely going for a bold new look, to say the least. Jacksonville is taking part in NFL's Color Rush campaign that began last week. Tonight, you'll see the team take the field in a new look. All that coming up in sports. The Florida Gator volleyball team is headed to the Bayou this weekend for the last road swing of the regular season. Welcome back to sports. I'm Sarah Mack. The 14th ranked Florida volleyball team will travel to Baton Rouge to face the LSU Tigers in one of the team's last 2 conference matchups of the season. Florida has swept 10 of its last 12 matches, including a home sweep of Alabama and Tennessee last weekend. Gators head coach Mary Wise has stressed the importance of staying competitive offensively all season, and that's something the Orange and Blue will have to keep in mind because LSU leads the SEC in digs per set.
Completely agree. It's something that later on down the road we really need to win the serve-pass battle in order to win these big matches. Being able to consistently put the ball in play with our serve and be aggressive is a huge part of our game.
LSU has lost its last 5 matches, and tomorrow night will be the first time the Gators and the Tigers will meet this season. All of the action can be found on the SEC Network at 5 o'clock. This weekend, the Florida football team will host its first non-conference matchup since the beginning of September as the Florida Atlantic Owls head to the Swamp. Saturday's game marks the third time the Owls and the Gators will meet in program history, with Florida defeating FAU in both previous contests. Although Florida Atlantic is struggling at 2-8 this season, the Gators cannot overlook the team, especially quarterback Jaquez Johnson, who stands at 6'1", weighing in at a whopping 240 pounds. Johnson has thrown for 8 touchdowns and rushed for more than 200 yards this season alone. Some may argue that for 8th-ranked Florida, Saturday's game will be a walk in the park. However, Gators head football coach Jim McElwain knows it is anything but.
Heel. The thing that these guys do from us, our standpoint, what have we gotten beaten with? Trick plays. These guys do a ton of them, and they do them well. Okay. Quarterback run. You just stated it, and so that's where I said the discipline for us to be on task and be focused on each and every down to be successful is going to be a key.
Florida's defense, which ranks 5th in the nation, will be without 3 key defensive linemen this Saturday. Alex McAllister will be out with a foot injury. Jordan Sherritt will also be on the sidelines with a hamstring injury, and Joey Ivey will miss his 3rd consecutive game with a leg injury. The Gators will take the field Saturday at noon in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. The AFC South's second Thursday night showcase of the season will be going down tonight when the Jaguars welcome the Titans to Everbank Field. Who would have thought that the Jags would be fighting for the first place in their division while standing at 3-6 on the season? Both Jacksonville and Tennessee are in odd positions, simultaneously fighting to escape the bottom of the standings. And to their advantage, every team in the AFC South has a losing record. Tennessee was no match for undefeated Carolina, and the Titans fell 27-10 last week. On the contrary, Jacksonville pulled off a road win over the Ravens with a 53-yard field goal as time expired. With that 2-point win over Baltimore, the Jags are now just 1 game behind the Colts in the division. Tonight, Titans interim head coach Mike Mullary will be returning to Everbank Field for the first time since Jacksonville fired him as head coach following his 2-14 2012 season. The Jags will be dressed in bold gold as they take on the Titans tonight at 8:25. The Miami Heat will be back in sunny South Florida tonight when the team welcomes the Kings to the American Airlines Arena. Both Miami and Sacramento have won 3 of their last 4 games, and it will be a battle of East versus West tonight out on the hardwood. Kings' DeMarcus Cummins will likely battle it out with former teammate, now center Miami Hassan Whiteside, coming off of his second career triple-double with 22 points, 14 blocks, and 12 in the Heat's 12-point loss to the Timberwolves on Tuesday. The Heat, who are now 6-4, are looking to get back on track, and that could very well be possible tonight. Miami has had a day to recover from their last match, while the Kings are playing their second game in 2 days. Tip-off is set for a 7:30. Well, guys, throwing it back to the FAU-UF game this weekend, there are 53 players between UF and FAU that have either played against each other or with each other, all coming from 16 different high schools around the state of Florida.
With these kids knowing each other, expect FAU to come out fired up on Saturday.
Definitely such a small world, too. Sarah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as the holidays approach, the big city got a big donation.
That's right. One woman has taken the phrase season of giving to a whole new level. New York City's Carol Suchman bought the entire contents of a toy store to give away to charity. After seeing a shuttered toy and stationery store in the West Village with a for rent sign, she made a deal with the owner to buy everything inside. She then bagged up the thousands of toys, stuffed animals, and even school supplies herself and donated it all to the city's Department of Homeless Services. Thanks to Suchman's toy buying spree, thousands of homeless children in the city will have at least one present to open.
That's such a cool story. Before we go, let's get one last check on the weather.
Showers are moving through the area. Rain's going to start to taper off within the next about hour to 2 hours in the area, and then we'll clear out for Friday. Still a chance for rain on Saturday and Sunday. It ends early on Sunday, then it turns cooler. Temperatures below average Monday, Tuesday, and then we start to warm back up by Wednesday. Back to you.
All right, Rebecca, thank you. We'll be back tomorrow at 5, but your Florida news is always on at WUFT.org.
Here on WUFT TV, BBC World News is up next, and the PBS NewsHour is coming up at 7 o'clock. Have a good night.